Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire, misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite, voices like the park fans drift in jerseys. Legacy bold, the metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets pregame show here with one of your two hosts. It's your boy CP. And again, welcome back to the show. We are discussing Mets versus Diamondbacks, game 3 of this series. It's a rubber match to decide who is going to win this series. Mets are looking for some revenge, especially after a series loss to the Diamondbacks at Citi Field last week. And Kodai Senga is going to give it another try against the Diamondbacks after a game on May 1st in which he only posted 4 innings pitched against this same very team. Before we fully get into this stream, the discussion, we're going to talk a little bit about last night's game and a little bit of a look ahead as you see a lineup that's rather peculiar, but I kind of like it. In the middle of your screen right here, right next to me, Rob can't make it. He is working. He's a hardworking man. He can't make the post game. We'll see if we do the post game. TBD. Again, smash the notifications button, smash the thumbs up buttons. Unusual start time here on the West Coast game, 3:40 p.m., just about 50 minutes until game time. I'm not going to take too much of your time, ladies and gentlemen, here on this pregame show, but there are some things that we should discuss. And again, if you are new to the channel, if you're new to these streams, please do smash those subscribe buttons. And not only vote in the live chat poll, but also drop your thoughts and opinions in the comments section of the live chat. What did you think about, this series so far? And also last night's 5-1 loss in Arizona in game 2, where David Peterson was going up against Zach Gallen. I'm going to be honest. I didn't stay up to watch the whole game. This series has been kind of kicking my ass. I'm a little bit tired, and I went to bed a little bit early, especially after the Mets went down. But what I saw in the first half of the game, because I did stay up until about the 5th or 6th inning, is that, there was just lethargicness. I'm going to keep bringing up that word. And the game plan from this Mets lineup against Zach Gallen was not great. It wasn't great. It was a lot more guessing. And Zach Gallen, who had a lot of success against this lineup, the previous go around, also had a lot of success last night. And he's throwing 2 primary pitches, just like he was. The game plan really didn't change for him up against this Mets lineup. The game plan did not change. He was throwing his knuckle curveball, and he was throwing a 4-seam fastball that wasn't even touching 95 miles per hour consistently. And he was getting a lot of, not strikeouts, but a lot of swing and miss and a lot of buckling of the knees and freezing from this Mets lineup because, as we talked about before during that first Zach Gallen start, when you are guessing off speed on a guy that has a pretty good curveball as his secondary pitch, and he utilized it as such in that first go around, if you're guessing that it's going to be that curveball, you are going to get frozen by a fastball, even if it's 90 miles per hour, let alone 93. And so yesterday I saw a lot of guessing from the Mets lineup. And I didn't really like that because it just seems like they had no adjustments against this particular pitcher in Zach Gallen, and the way that he was able to find success in Queens is the same way he was able to do so in Arizona. So again, it's just the situational aspect, and at bat to at bat basis. There was no game to game adjustment, and there was no at bat to at bat adjustment from the Mets lineup yesterday. And I think the perfect example was one of the at bats in the middle parts of the game by Francisco Alvarez, where he gets down in a pitcher's friendly count and he's guessing curveball. I think it was 1-2-0-2 and 93 miles per hour. He didn't even take the bat off of his shoulders because he was not thinking fastball and adjusting to the off speed. And it was pretty evident. And on the flip side, because yesterday was an ugly loss. Let's be honest. Yesterday was an ugly loss, but the beautiful thing about baseball, as I say this for the millionth time on this channel, especially when you take game one and set the tone early in this series, you're able to go out there and salvage this series by winning it in game three with Kodai Senga on the mound. The pitching side of things yesterday with David Peterson, did he look his best? No, he didn't look his best, but he cruised through the first 3 innings. He looked pretty good in the first 3 innings. And then all of a sudden, a leadoff hit, quote unquote, a baseball that was smoked, albeit right through the legs of Mark Vientos. If you're Mark Vientos, you have to have that play. Especially with the offense and what they've been doing recently. Only putting up 1 run in the ball game at that point. It was 1-0. You got to have that play. And so, leadoff double for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think in the very same inning, Francisco Alvarez, lets a baseball go by him to move the runner to third base. And it was just a failed inning from the defense behind David Peterson. And you don't see that quite often. David Peterson usually is one of the luckier pitches in this Mets pitching staff that benefits from great defense. But yesterday was not the case. And then after that, they slowly started to figure out David Peterson, the second time through, the third time through, etc. I was very surprised when we got to the 6th inning and David Peterson was around 85, 86 pitches, and I didn't see anybody warming up in the bullpen after him. Was very surprised about that. But again, another case in point where we talk about the Mets pitchers when they're at 86 to 90 pitches, when they get through that 5th inning, is Carlos Mendoza going to play the conservative game of taking them out, or is he going to try to extend them a little bit? And yesterday, like we've been asking for, Mendoza made the decision to extend him. And it didn't quite work out in the Mets' favor, but you have to do that given the situation of the bullpen right now. So it was a frustrating game, all in all. And of course, we can't talk about yesterday's game without talking about Brandon Nimmo, who's back, surprisingly, to my surprise, is back in the lineup today, hitting cleanup, but DHing. Yesterday on the baseball was a double hit down the line off of David Peterson. It took an awkward bounce off of the wall, and Brandon Nimmo took an awkward step. I don't really know what it was. I don't know if it was his hamstring. I don't know if it was his knee or his foot. It looked like he was grabbing at the hamstring when the trainer and Mendoza were going out there to left field to check on him. But it's something where with Brandon Nimmo in left field coming into the season, Rob and I were talking about this a lot. It's almost like you're holding your breath out there with Brandon Nimmo. The plantar fasciitis that was ailing him last season, taking extended time in spring training to try to get ready. And it just seems like every single time a ball is hit out there, he's lost a step. And now he's not even playing left field today. He's in the lineup, but he's DHing. So naturally, Mendoza has to shift this lineup around to try to accommodate that. And at this point, with Jesse Winker on the IL, with the oblique injury suffered in the last series, Jeff McNeil is going to be your left fielder. Couple other things from yesterday that I saw. Again, Brandon Nimmo, it's good to see him out there. I'm surprised. I'm curious how Mendoza is going to manage Brandon Nimmo moving forward because he did not look right at all. At all. But some other things of note is that Jeff McNeil, again, the bat is not impressive. I know that Jeff McNeil has a lot of supporters in this fan base, and I would love to see him get it going. First series against the Nationals, he was cruising. He looked good. Now you see the batting average start to dip, 219, OPS, 650. And he's beating a lot of baseballs back into the ground. And so when you think about the second base platoon at this point of who's going to get more playing time between McNeil and Acuna and how well Acuna has done this season, you got to start thinking about what the configurations are going to be. And then also Starling Marte. It wasn't much traffic that the Mets were able to get off of Zach Gallen yesterday to put runners in scoring position. But again, they took an offer. And it's the complete 180 of the St. Louis Cardinals series where they were able to generate a lot of traffic on the bases via base hits, walks, what have you. And they were going 0 for 7, 0 for 10, etc. But yesterday, they took an 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position. And the most brutal at-bat of the game was a 3-pitch strikeout with bases loaded, 2 outs by Starling Marte. That was one of the worst at-bats that I've seen a New York Met take this season. Right after Pete Alonso draws a bases-loaded walk for an RBI, the first run of the game. And that was a great inning because Tyrone Taylor actually hustled out what would have been an inning-ending double play, and the Mets were able to get bases loaded. So it was great hustle from him coming around with that run on the RBI by Alonso. But Starling Marte, if the Mets plan to keep experimenting with this Starling Marte batting cleanup nonsense, those at-bats, I don't know how those at-bats are convincing to try to keep going along with that. I get it. Starling Marte can still hit the baseball. He can still be clutch off the bench, as we've seen him have a game winner so far this season, right? Against the Phillies, if I'm not mistaken. But he's not a player that you should be inserting into the top 5 of this lineup. I'm sorry. We can't have that happen. And I know that he goes 1 for 4 yesterday. Pete Alonso takes the 0 for with 3 strikeouts. And that's how good Zach Gallen is, because as locked in as Pete Alonso has looked, he goes 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts. But this Starling Marte batting cleanup nonsense has to stop. It has to stop. All right. I've stated all of my dislikes about yesterday's game. We're about 14 minutes here on this stream. I promise I'm not going to take too much longer of your time as we're coming up, 40 minutes left to play till opening pitch, or first pitch, I should say. Let's talk about today's game. And before we talk about today's game, let's get into some of the comments here, because I want to shout out everybody here in the comment section. Salute to David being in the chat. Please do make sure to smash those thumbs up buttons if you are here. If you're watching the replay, smash the thumbs ups. If you're new to the stream, subscribe. What are you doing if you're not subscribed yet? Shout out to George. Shout out to Ken. Ken is not shy, but I appreciate the commentary in the comment section as well. This is really it, right? Let's get back on track. This is really it. This is a good comment by George. You have a very tough stretch of baseball games coming up. And it's not like you looked your best for the past week if you're the New York Mets. A series loss to St. Louis. A series loss to the Arizona Diamondbacks. A series split with the Washington Nationals. I mean, we're going on what? 7, 8, 9, maybe even 10 days that the New York Mets have just not looked like the team that went up 11 games over 500 just a short bit ago. The division lead, if you're paying attention, I always say that I'm not looking at the division until next month when June rolls around. The Phillies are catching up 2 games behind, and the Braves are 5 games behind. The Braves are actually playing a lot better baseball than what they were just a couple weeks ago. The only way that the Braves could go from how they started is up. They can't go down because that was some of the worst baseball that we've seen them play. So this division is going to be close all season long. And if you're a Mets fan, you have to expect that. But it's a tough stretch of baseball games that the Mets are going to embark on even after this Diamondbacks series. They play the Cubs. They play the Dodgers. 2 teams that are pretty damn good this season. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. But if the Mets are legit this year, like we all think that they are, supposed to beat good teams. Oliver's agreeing Mets are definitely lethargic. That's like the word when we see the inconsistency of this lineup. That's my favorite word to use if you haven't gotten the gist of that already. Is they just look lethargic. Situational hitting with runners in scoring position. Even just the at-bat to at-bat adjustments that they should be making, it's not there. So, need to see more of that. Need to see more adjustments. Bearded Nimmo in the 4-hole, batting cleanup instead of Starling Marte. I'll take Nimmo over Marte as the cleanup hitter all day long, D. I would agree with you there. But Brandon Nimmo also still has to get it going with the bat. Let's see. Let's get into some more comments. I appreciate you all being here. Again, it's an unusual start time. It's just about 3:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We can get into some more of these comments. Emma's saying it should be Vientos rather than Nimmo. I'm still confident with Vientos. And yeah, I'm a little bit surprised, that the Mets rolled with Nimmo at DH today. I actually agree with that, Emma. I do agree with that. Mark Vientos hasn't looked lights out with the bat, but he's still got a 5-game hit streak if you look at it, whatever that's worth. I know that he didn't make the play yesterday. Should have been an error, by the way. Did you listen to Gary and Keith? They were disgusted with the Diamondbacks official scorekeeper ruling that baseball that went through Mark Vientos' legs in that 4th inning to get the Diamondbacks lineup going. They ruled it as a hit instead of an error. They were absolutely disgusted with that. But no, I agree. I agree with that comment, Emma. I really think that I would have expected, really, especially with the Nimmo injury that he sustained, hobbling around out there. I thought it would have been, if you wanted Brett Baty to get into this game, right, being called up for this series with the Winker injury, I love it. I love getting Brett Baty back into this lineup, and hopefully he's able to pick up where he left off. And I said over on my X account, if you don't follow me over on X and Instagram and anywhere else at True Mets Talk, but I said when Brett Baty got sent down, I knew it wouldn't be for long. I wasn't foreshadowing any injuries happening, but with the way that he left off, and with the Mets deciding to prioritize and letting everybody know that they were going to prioritize Brett Baty in the early goings of this season, I just knew everybody should have expected that he would have been back up to Queens sooner rather than later. And so with the matinee game today, after 2 night games on the West Coast, yeah, we can expect to see Brett Baty in the lineup, but I would have thought that Mark Vientos would be DHing. But apparently Nimmo was talking to the trainer. He was talking to Mendoza. He was absolutely in favor of staying in the ball game last night. If he's good to go, he's good to go. But we're not making, if you tell the trainer and the coach, the manager that you're good to go, stay in the ball game, and you are back in the lineup the very next day, there's no excuses of said injury. Same thing for Senga pitching last go around when he was sick. If you are out there, that means you have told the coaching staff, or the coaching staff and the training staff has deemed that you are ready to compete at a professional level. And so we can't use those injuries as excuses. So we'll see how he performs with the bat. But yeah, you know what? For a rubber match, given the circumstances, I don't like you can't point out much wrong with this lineup outside of what Emma just pointed out. Lindor batting leadoff, playing shortstop. Juan Soto batting second, playing right field. Pete Alonso. I mean, I know he took the 0 for yesterday, but Pete Alonso's just been scorching the baseball. Monstrous home run in game 1 of this series. 425-foot bomb. And he's leading in pretty much every category. He's leading the Mets definitively in every category. But in all of baseball, I mean, he's top 2 in pretty much every category as well. And he'd be 1 if Aaron Judge just wasn't outperforming what he's already doing, which is ridiculous to think about. Salute to Cope. Salute to Cope. You know, I could be feeling a lot better now that you ask me. You know, if the Mets put up a decent performance yesterday and they still lost the ball game, I would be feeling a lot better. But there wasn't much to like about what the Mets did yesterday. So I'm hoping they're able to correct those mistakes and take a series today, because that's all us Mets fans can hope for. But this is where the lineup gets interesting, outside of Brandon Nimmo batting cleanup and DHing. Luis Torrens catching, which is pretty self-explanatory. The Mets have remained consistent, and Mendoza has remained consistent that they are not going to play Francisco Alvarez in a day game after a night game. So that makes sense. Brett Beatty batting 6th, playing third base. Welcome back, Brett Beatty. If he is able to do something similar, I know this is very far-fetched and I'm not really expecting it, but if he is able to replicate being sent down and then coming back up with a vengeance, just like Vientos was last season, wishful thinking, I know. How refreshing would that be? How refreshing would that be? But now we're talking about, what do the Mets do long term at third base? Because this is something that, we might see continuous shuffling. Vientos has looked pretty respectable defensively, but he hasn't been lights out. And that's been something, when Vientos first came up, we just wanted respectable defense. But now with the DH situation being what it is, I have no doubt in my mind that Brandon Nimmo is going to be DHing a lot. I don't know what the future holds for Starling Marte. I'm going to be very honest with you all. I don't know what the future holds for Starling Marte because it just seems like he's taking up a roster spot, as I talked about continuously before the season started, when they were trying to trade him during the offseason. There's too many DHs on this team, the way that I see it. And this continuous rotation at DH is hindering this lineup, the efficiency of it all. So you could see maybe Mark Vientos start taking reps at the DH spot at some point if the Mets want to get Brett Beatty into more ball games. If they want to roll with Luis Angel Acuna, if they are so, sure that they are going to continuously play Jeff McNeil on second base, Luis Angel Acuna can't go anywhere with the way that he's performing right now to start the season. He's not going back down to AAA. And they've already played Luis Angel Acuna a game at third base. So if you're going to DH Vientos in any circumstances this season, then if it's not Brett Beatty, Luis Angel Acuna is going to be your third baseman. But I think that that's a little bit of a further out discussion because I do think that at least consistently over the next couple of months, maybe until the All-Star break, Mark Vientos is going to be pretty much the consistent everyday third baseman for the New York Mets. But there has been a lot of shuffling of this Mets lineup already, and I expect there to be a lot more shuffling of this lineup by Mendoza to try to get to the sweet spot of consistency that we just simply haven't seen from this lineup just yet in this season. So Brett Beatty playing third base, batting 6th. Luis Angel Acuna, who got into the ball game yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, and took a hit by pitch. I think that was yesterday. Playing second base, batting 7th. And I just love the way Luis Angel Acuna grinds out at bats. We have not seen the power from Luis Angel Acuna's bat just yet. I think that's pretty evident. He showed some gap to gap and home run power during the 2-week stretch last season, late in the season. But we haven't seen that side of his game just yet. But we don't need to see that side of his game in order for him to contribute to this team consistently like he has been in the early goings of this season. And that's what makes him such a game changer. And that's why I was always in favor of playing Luis Angel Acuna and giving him the chance, because he is a versatile ball player, defensively and offensively. As long as he's getting on base via singles and walks, that's as good as a double. Because more often times than not, as he's just shy of 10 stolen bases so far a month into the season, he's going to take second base. He's going to take second base. So that's pretty much as good as a double, in my book at least. And I'm sure the Mets view it the same way, in trying to keep getting runners in scoring position in hopes that this lineup breaks through. But always love to see Luis Angel Acuna in the lineup. And in this circumstance, he's playing second base while Brett Baty's playing third base. Let me actually look, because I want to see. I mean, I know Luis Angel Acuna steals 30, 40 consistently at the minor league level. I want to see what he's at so far. I think it's 8, right? Yeah, 8. He's batting .298 and 8 stolen bases. It's good production, especially for a platoon player. And I think that the platoon actually might be hurting Luis Angel Acuna. I'd rather just see him play every day and get into a rhythm, because then we can really see what he brings to the table. But so far, all in all, even given the platoon that he's been in to start this season, he's outperforming expectations. Jeff McNeil, batting 8th, playing left field, especially with that Nimmo injury yesterday. I don't know. I don't really know what to say about Jeff McNeil. I don't. I'm trying to figure it out, really. It seems like there are some fans in this fan base that don't want to face the cold, hard truth when it comes to Jeff McNeil. He's just simply not the same hitter as he once was. You know what I mean? And so he hasn't looked great at the plate over the past few days. I told you the numbers have dipped. And so I'm just curious. I don't think anybody has the answer to this that's not in this Mets organization and in the front office. But I'm curious when enough is enough with Jeff McNeil being an everyday player. Because I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I don't think he's going to go anywhere unless some team wants his contract at the deadline. But he can't be playing every day. He can't be playing every day. And he sure as hell cannot be taking reps away from Luis Angel Acuna at this point. If you want to play him in left field and have Nimmo DH, right? That's fine with me. You put him in left field. But Luis Angel Acuna needs to be playing and in the lineup if Jeff McNeil's in the lineup. So that's why I'm happy we got what we got today. And rounding things out, batting 9th, the second leadoff position, that 9-hole hitter, is Tyrone Taylor. Tyrone Taylor. I'm smiling from ear to ear right now because Tyrone Taylor is knocking the cover off the baseball. I believe in game 1 of this series, they were talking about how he was hitting 500 over the last X amount of games. I forgot what it was. Let me look up his splits right now, because he is swinging a very hot bat. It's awesome to see, especially with his speed on the bases. He makes things happen. And the Mets need this. The Mets really do need this when the outfield is looking iffy, especially with Nimmo's lack of production and the injury concern now. So let me look at the splits here for Tyrone Taylor. Over the last 7 days, Tyrone Taylor is batting .474 with a 1366 OPS over the last 7 days. In the last 15 days, he's batting .308 with an 885 OPS. That is great production from the bottom half of your lineup from Tyrone Taylor. Fantastic. And very timely too. Especially when the Mets are trying to figure it all out with the lineup. You know, guys not performing up to expectations. Tyrone Taylor. Trust in Tyrone Taylor. It seems like he took it personally when I told everybody that I like Tyrone Taylor's game, but he's kind of a fourth outfielder and just that. It seems like he took that personally, which I like. Because this Mets lineup needs that sort of production at the bottom of the lineup. Gotta have Acuna every day at this point. Gotta have it. I mean, he just impacts the game in so many ways that you have to have him in the lineup. So that's your Mets lineup. Hopefully, we can get things going with runners in scoring position and get runners across. I don't know too much about Merrill Kelly. I don't know what kind of pitcher he is. I don't know what the arsenal possesses. I should have took the time and studied up a little bit on him. I know that he's not having a great season on paper with the general numbers. But again, doesn't really mean much if you're facing a lineup that can't hit with runners in scoring position. So hopefully the Mets are able to break through today against Merrill Kelly. That would be awesome. But Kodai Senga, what are we going to get from Kodai Senga? Another time, he hasn't pitched with 5 days rest at all so far this season. It's another go around in this rotation where Kodai Senga is pitching with 6 days rest. His last outing was against this Diamondbacks team in Queens on May 1st. Right? So this is his 6th day that he's pitching. And I will say up front, Kodai Senga has impressed me with the exception of last outing. I know that he was sick, but he took the mound, and we're not using that as an excuse. If you are taking the ball every 6th day, and this is where I will, I guess, echo Rob and what he says about Kodai Senga. If you are imposing a 6-man rotation or making it to where this Mets organization thinks that there needs to be a 6-man rotation because Kodai Senga needs to go every 6th day instead of every 5th day, we need length out of Kodai Senga at the very minimum to make up for games where you don't get length out of the rotation. When Clay Holmes pitches, maybe when Tyler McGill pitches, maybe when Griffin Canning pitches. Even though that they've been doing great this season, it's few and far between when those guys get into the 6th inning. Kodai Senga has been one of the better pitchers in this rotation at doing so. We need to see it. And there is a little bit of leeway today because tomorrow is an off day, so that's that. But even still, I would love to see Kodai Senga follow up a 4-inning outing with a 6+ inning outing today. And, last outing, the adjustments that he's going to need to make is making the Ghost Fork a little bit more competitive. So what I mean by that is the Ghost Fork looked pretty good against the Diamondbacks last outing for him. But they were figuring it out, especially the second time through the lineup. They were laying off of that pitch. So usually when Kodai Senga is on his game, he's throwing that Ghost Fork that just dies right at home plate, right? And it just drops out of the strike zone, and he induces a lot of swings and misses with that particular pitch. The Diamondbacks were not swinging at that pitch. And if you look at his Baseball Savant page, his fastball has not been good. Opposing hitters, the Diamondbacks, and other lineups have been seeing his fastball really well. So he's been having to continuously rely on that Ghost Fork. And if you have a team that is not willing to chase the Ghost Fork and you're not throwing it for strikes, it's a bad recipe, right? That's a recipe for disaster. That's a recipe for a short outing, just like he had. So he needs to make that Ghost Fork a little bit more competitive from the way that I assess things. And something's going to have to click with his fastball Something's going to have to click with his fastball. Because let me just look at Baseball Savant real quick. Let me look at baseball. I know I talked about this before, but this is what's alarming to me about Kodai Senga. Again, the overall numbers are okay. 1.38 ERA. He's 3-2 win-loss. You know, walks and hits per innings pitch. He's not really walking that many hitters at 1.16. That looks good. But what doesn't look good is the cut fastball that he's throwing for 19.6% of his pitches. Opposing hitters are hitting 400 off of his cutter. His four-seam fastball, which is his predominant pitch outside of the forkball, that he throws for about 33% of the time, opposing hitters are hitting 325 off of it. So both of his fastball variations, opposing hitters are mashing so far this season. And the ghost fork, opposing hitters are only hitting 0.073 against. But how many times does he throw that pitch in the zone? So if you have a lineup that's willing to lay off of it and is willing to hump the fastball, not a recipe for success for Kodai Senga. And so he's having to compensate by throwing more sweepers and maybe more sinkers, where he's having a little bit more success with those pitches. But the fastball needs to be better. And the fastball velocity is down. I'm not sure if that's a problem. I'm not sure if that's going to be a problem. But he's throwing it 94, just around 94.8 miles per hour this season compared to 95.8 last season. So it's just a little bit down. Those are my long-term concerns with Kodai Senga. Again, I think that he's done a really solid job, in his first full season healthy since 2023. But when I look at those numbers, especially with the fastball struggles that he's had, a little bit concerning. So we'll see how he does today. Hopefully it's a 180 compared to his last outing. We love Tyrone, says D. Yes, Tyrone Taylor is a stud. Tyrone is getting the job done 100%. Daniel saying, ever since they banned the shift, McNeil hasn't been the same. You could definitely say that. Patrick saying, better call on Tyrone. Acuna has a 362 OBP. Let's not sleep on that part of his game. Yeah, he gets on base. That's his biggest asset in which he brings to this Mets ball club. It'd be great if he, hits for extra base hits and gets the OPS up and hits home runs. Like, that's fine. That'd be awesome. That's a cherry on top, though. The primary thing that we talk about Luis Angel Acuna and what he can bring to the table is him getting on base at a high clip. And 362, like Patrick is saying in the chat, is pretty damn good. I'll take that all day long. So, yeah, Carson's here for the Roan talk. Absolutely. We praise Tyrone Taylor on this stream and on my channel all the time. Because, during these last stretch of games, when the Mets offense is just, again, the consistency, I hate to bring up that word for the fifth time this stream. We haven't seen it. Tyrone Taylor, especially with the lack of production at the center field spot that we were getting from Jose Siri before he landed on the IL, and Tyrone Taylor didn't get off to the best of starts at the plate this season as well. It's good to see him finally taking off. It's good to see. He's been fantastic on this road trip, 100%. Appreciate you, Cope. I try to be as unbiased as possible. You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty objective that the Mets are not playing their best baseball and that something just hasn't clicked with this team yet. I think they can turn it around. But I think it starts with the offense. I think that there's a lot of emphasis on pitching with this team, and that's fine. That's great. But what has failed this team consistently, in my humble opinion, so far through the first 37 games of the season has been the offense. If we've gotten better offensive production. I'm not saying we need amazing offensive production to begin the season, but I'm saying if we've gotten a little bit better than what we've gotten so far, this team, you're talking about, let's say they're 24-13 right now. You're talking about maybe adding 4 wins onto those 24 wins. So you're talking about 28-9 instead with some of the ball games that this team has lost. And this lineup isn't perfect, right? Especially now with the injuries. Even without the injuries, before Winker went down, I had a lot of concerns about the DH spot. Last season, I was not a fan of the rotating DH, the platoon DH. I'm still not. Would love for the Mets at some point in the future, whether it's this season or the next, to be consistent and find a consistent DH. Some of the other platoons at second base, not a fan of. I know that the center field position is very premier, right? And there's not really many center fielders that bring great defense with a great bat. They're fine, hard to find. But I'd like for that position to get a little bit more consistent. So there's still holes in this Mets lineup personnel-wise. But even still, this lineup is built to be a top 5 offense in the league, and they haven't done so. And as Paula is saying in the chat right here, this is the primary reason why. It's the lack of situational hitting. It really is. It really is. So, listen, great opportunity today. You lost 5-1. In a game that you led 1-0 yesterday, fine. Game 2 of the series, you took the first game. This is why it's a rubber match. Take the series. This has implications. This is a big ball game today, ladies and gentlemen. It's a big ball game. This has NL wildcard implications. I think that we can all agree that it's not likely the Diamondbacks win their division, with the Dodgers being there and the Padres as well, being as good as they are. So you're talking about a Diamondbacks team that's going to be there at the end of the season, hunting for one of the wildcard spots, just like they were last season, alongside whoever doesn't make it out on top of the NL East. So the season series between all of these wildcard teams or potential wildcard teams are going to be jumbled up at the end of the season matter. I know it's May 7th, and if the Mets lose this ball game, we're still going to be talking about a team that's, 24 and whatever they are now. I even forget their record. Let me look at their record because falling asleep in the middle of the past 2 games has not helped me out. The Mets are 23-14. I was saying 24-13, 23-14. You'll have a team if they lose today being 23-15. Still a pretty good start to the season, right? But the head-to-head matchup between the Diamondbacks, in case you don't win the division, is going to come back around and be important. If I'm not mistaken, Mets took 1 of 2. So that's 2-1 Diamondbacks. They evened it up. So between these 2 series so far, it's 3-2 in favor of the Diamondbacks. The very minimum, make it 3-3. 4-2 isn't good. Yeah, these are important games. Big game because of the tiebreaker implications. This is the only reason why the Mets made it to the playoffs last season, mind you. Having the same record as the Arizona Diamondbacks is because they won 4 of 7 last season against this very team. Got to even this series up. Got to do it. Got to do it. Shout out to the chat. Big Knicks game today, by the way. Awesome job taking game 1. I'm not satisfied. Knicks Celtics game 2 today as well. It's nice because, it seems like the Mets and the Knicks so far during the Knicks playoff run, have been playing at the same time. So I haven't been able to watch. I didn't watch a lot of that Knicks Pistons series like as intently as I should have been, given the Mets being on at the same time. Of course, I'm going to have dual screens and watch both at the same time because I love both teams. But we get the Mets game today. Hopefully they set the tone of the day by winning and taking this series. And then we get to watch Knicks versus Celtics. For those of you all who are in the chat and are also fellow Knicks fans, hopefully, I still have a pretty bad feeling. I'm not going to lie. I despise the Boston Celtics. I despise them. They're a good team, though. They're a good team. If the Knicks are able to take game 2 today, I have a lot better feeling about this series. A lot better. But shout out Captain Jalen Brunson getting the job done. Clutch player of the year in the NBA. Where would the Knicks be without Jalen Brunson? Where would they be? As an organization, as a franchise over the past couple of seasons, he saved this franchise. And this is the bottom line. As Cope is saying, agreed, CP. We need to show up against teams like this. We need to show up against teams that are going to be right there, neck and neck with us at the end of the season. Especially for the wild card implications. You're playing the Diamondbacks, who are going to be a playoff team. You're playing the Cubs, who are going to be a playoff team right after this. And right after that, if I'm not mistaken, you're playing the Dodgers, who, guess what, are going to be a playoff team. It's a big test for a club that hasn't played their best baseball in a little bit now. It's a big test. And this is what good teams do. This is what good teams do. When they're not playing their best, they're still able. I'm sorry, it's the Pirates series before the Dodgers. But good teams are able to find ways to win, even though they're not clicking on all cylinders, right? Even if you're not clicking on all cylinders, you're able to find ways to win. Find a way to win today, no matter how you do it. I don't care if it's ugly. Take the series. So, yeah, I agree with this, Carson. I agree. I'm going to stay calm, even keel. If they show me something tonight and win game 2, then I'm going to be like that meme where I'm going to go up to the edge of my seat and be like, now I'm ready to see something. Brunson is absolutely the man, though. Let's go Knicks. Absolutely. So, yeah, I'll let you all know if we're doing the post game today. I know that Rob's not going to be a part of the post game stream as he has to work. I'll let you know if I'm able to do so. I do have a couple of errands to run. I will be watching the game. If I'm able to have time to toss up a stream for the post game today after this game 3, I will do so. Smash the notifications buttons to get notified when we go live. Hit the thumbs up on this stream. Subscribe to the channel for more Mets content, more pre-recorded videos, more streams, pregame and postgame, and everything else that you need to know about the New York Mets in this 2025 season. I thoroughly appreciate the support. Let's go Mets. Offense. Please. Let's get Kodai Senga some runs. Let's get some insurance. Let's do it. See you all later on the channel. Appreciate everybody in the comments section. I'm out. Peace.